afternoon and welcome to today's webinar session, everyone. We'll be providing an introduction to EDPass functionalities, data areas, and user roles. I want to point out a new functionality that we have with our WebEx platform. Now you will see closed captioning at the bottom of the screen. That is to be 508 compliant. You may leave them on, or you can click the X to make them go away. A few notes to keep in mind during today's webinar. Everyone's on mute, so if you would like to ask any questions, and we are encouraging questions today, please enter them in the Q&A box on the right-hand side of your screen. Try not to use the chat box if you can. A recording of today's presentation will be available on the EDPass Community of Practice site, as well as the slide deck used today. We will distribute a broadcast once it's available to anyone that registered. So if there are folks on your team that were unable to make it today, they will be notified when they, if they registered, when the recording is available. Okay. Participants today include David Lee of the U.S. Department of Ed, myself, Jess Green of the EDPass Partner Support Center, and then our state participants most likely are going to be the EDPass coordinators, as well as the IDEA Part B data managers for the outlying areas, and then any other users that have been invited by the EDPass coordinator who are going to be identified as the state EDPass manager once EDPass goes live. Then we'll get into more details on that in a bit. The agenda for today is going to be an overview of EDPass administrative processes, as well as display some development screenshots and videos as they are today. With that in mind, that we will be showing you screenshots and recorded demonstrations, please know that the final decisions of the screens that you see are still pending approval, meaning things could change as simple as just the layout. Functionalities are continuing to be finalized. And the data, any data that you see in the prototype is sample data only. There is no real state data in any of the screenshots or demonstrations you'll see today. Sorry, my screen keeps freezing. Okay, so we're going to start with an overview of user account processes in EDPass. Again, if you have any questions at any point, please use the Q&A panel so that we can answer those as we go through each section. So this is our roadmap. There's 6 total steps that we're going to go over today. So again, as you have questions, just throw them in the Q&A box. The first thing that you're going to need to do is identify 2 state EDPass managers for your state. In the past couple of days, you should have received a broadcast from PSC that had 2 attachments to it. One of the first steps in that communication was to identify 2 state EDPass managers. So each EDPass coordinator will be assigned the state EDPass manager role. So that will fulfill one of the 2 available roles. This role is going to include access to all data areas in EDPass. That means that every file specification you will have access to as the state EDPass manager. You're going to have the ability to perform all EDPass functions. That includes uploading files, resolving data quality errors, adding state submission plan notes, and ultimately submitting the file. You also, or the person with state EDPass manager role, will also be able to create and manage state-defined roles and state EDPass users. So that's a big deal. You guys are going to be maintaining all of the users in the state. States with 1 EDPass coordinator must identify a second EDPass manager. So if there is only 1 EDPass coordinator in your state, and there is for the most part in most states, you're going to want to identify another individual who's going to have access to have this type of access to EDPass. So that's something that we want you to think about in the coming weeks prior to EDPass going live. So the second step in this process is that you're going to create login.gov accounts for yourself, and then you're going to have all of your state users create login.gov accounts. This process can be done now. It's not something that has to wait, and we encourage you to create your own login.gov account as well as the users in your state as you identify them. To do that, you simply go to the link here. It was also in the broadcast that was sent to you all directly, and the website walks you through creating an account. It's very simple. It takes about 5 minutes. To set up a login.gov account, just keep in mind that you will need a secure password and then 2 authentication methods to do that. It sets you up. It'll walk you through the process entirely. I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to continue on. So the third step here in this process is that PSC is actually the person or the people that are going to create the EDPass manager accounts. So PSC will be creating these accounts for you guys once we have access to EDPass, and we will distribute your information prior to go live, prior to February 27th, 2023. So I know you guys are anticipating access to EDPass, and as soon as we have the availability to do that, and meaning it's developed and built and we have access, we will send you communication. We will do more in-depth trainings for you guys as that comes, and then we will guide you to do all the steps that we're going over today for your teams. The fourth step in this process is when EDPass goes live. So everything we've talked about will happen prior to go live. And the accounts won't necessarily be set up, but the information that I sent you last week is preparing you to be ready for February 27th. That should say 2023. I apologize. I'll fix that before I send the slides out. But that is when EDPass is going to go live, and those CCD and charter files will be active. So that's step 4. Once step 4 passes, then we are on to step 5 is when you guys get to create your EDPass state user accounts and your roles. So this will be a process, and there will be in-depth training. But once EDPass goes live, all the work that you've done leading up to February 27th with your roles and functionalities, which we're going to go over in a few minutes, is when you're going to actually take everything that you put on paper, or if you're like me, an Excel spreadsheet, and you put it in EDPass. So that's kind of why I'm communicating to you all to do the lift now with creating these roles on paper, so that when EDPass goes live, you've done the thought process and everything will be able to just be entered, and you won't have to worry about thinking through processes and data governance. And one other thing I wanted to point out, because it was something that crossed my mind, was when EDPass goes live, the main individuals that need to have access right away are going to be the folks who work on the charter and the CCD 029 and 039 data. I'm sorry, Fawn, that's also typo. It should be 033. I'm sorry, it should be 039. It says 33. But yes, you're right. 029 and 039. And then charter data. Once that is up and running and you guys are working on your charter data and your CCD data, and you've submitted those files, then you guys can move on to the next set of individuals that need access to EDPass, so that they're prepared and ready when the next set of files goes live or is activated in EDPass. Okay, so we're getting a couple of questions here. Will the EDPass manager accounts be created based on the users that signed up for login.gov? So no, Joe, the EDPass manager accounts will actually be created based on what you as EDFACS coordinators provide back to PSC. So there will be communication in the coming weeks where we're going to reach out to you guys as the EDFACS coordinators and ask who is going to fulfill the second role. And that's how we'll proceed with creating the 2 accounts. Okay. So once EDPass goes live and you've created your accounts and your roles, the next step of the process is maintenance. Once you guys have all of your users entered and your roles created, which all can be edited any day, anytime, is account maintenance. It's going to be very important and a step that you will want to implement in your state processes because it is going to be a requirement in EDPass. So the EDFACS coordinator and the other individual who fulfills the state EDPass manager role will be required to work together. And the main things that you're going to be required to work together on are account maintenance. You're going to be able to, both individuals will be able to create new accounts as well as archive accounts whenever users are no longer requiring access. That means that they've left the state, they've left their role, and they no longer need access to EDPass. You know, if they've been let go, those types of things must be completed immediately. Conducting an annual access review on all of your users. So you're going to need to set up a process where every year you're actively looking through your users if you're not doing it on a more frequent basis, which I assume that most of you will. But you'll want to include that in your documentation. This is going to be a required process. And then maintaining roles as they are applicable to your state processes and data governance, because those types of things can change. So the roles are able to be created and then you can maintain them if something changes. And we'll go over roles in a little bit. But know that on the department side, quarterly reviews will be conducted on all individuals with state EDPass manager roles. So we currently do that process for DMS users, and we will do the same for EDPass users with this specific role. So we'll maintain the state EDPass manager users. You guys will maintain all of your state users. Okay. Those are the steps, and what we're going to do now is kind of dive a little bit deeper into EDPass user accounts and the roles, how to create them, and answer some of the questions in the Q&A about that. So this information was sent out in the email that you all should have received last week. This is the functions on the left and the data areas on the right. The data areas are at a high level. In the email communication I sent you all, it lists everything out as every single file specification out by data area. So both of these elements are required in order to create a role. So in your roles, you're going to identify or define what functionalities someone with that role can perform, and then you're going to apply it to a data area, meaning you could have one role that's identical for every single data area, or you could have users that have different functionalities for different data areas. We will go over that. So these are really important. These will be in the user guides that we send out prior to go live. This will be in our documentation. This is really important for you guys to have at all times so that you know who's doing what and what that means. So this is just a comparison of what the EDPass manager has access to in EDPass and what an EDPass user within the state has access to. So as a reminder, as the EDPass manager, there will be 2 individuals per state with that role. PSC is going to create your accounts, and then we will send your credentials when it goes live. In the event that a EDFACS coordinator leaves and a new one comes on, PSC will be the individual who creates those accounts and maintains them, meaning we'll archive the old coordinator and create a new account for the new coordinator. As the EDPass manager, you can do everything. You have access to every single data area and all functionalities. So you can do everything in EDPass. As well as create and maintain accounts, and then create your state-defined roles. The state-defined roles is really important. When we had the state focus groups for EDPass, we really heard that states want to have a way to really maintain who has access to what data in the system. And that is where these state-defined roles came from. So they really are flexible, and they really do adhere to your state. So what's the difference between a manager and a general EDPass user? In your state, there's no limit to the number of general users you can have. The accounts are created and maintained by you guys. And really, the type of access that a person has to EDPass, to your state data in EDPass, is up to you as the EDFACS coordinator and then whoever you're working with. So it's really important to really think through processes and who's going to need access and what kind of access now. So when it's time to upload files and submit, that's already set through. So I know I sent you guys a grid in the communication in order to you to kind of work off of when you're creating these accounts on paper or in Excel, but I wanted you to be able to see it in the system. So when you are going to create a role in EDPass, this is what it's going to look like. It's literally just checkboxes for the data areas on the left, and then it's all of your functionalities at the top. And this is pretty much the same thing I sent you. It's just in a nicer form. So you can see how you can easily create a role. And then at the top, you'll be able to create a role name and then define it so that you can differentiate between all of them. Okay, I'm going to stop for a second and just answer. There's a couple questions. In California, we have 4 different users in CCD and Charter. Can we set up all of those accounts in time for submission? Yes, you will, Jenna. It'll be very simple as long as you think through it and you have them all pretty much set in paper. You'll be able to go in on this screen and just check off your boxes for the types of roles you would like to create, whether all 4 of those people have different access or if they all have the same. In other words, you would assign them all the same role, or you would create 4 different roles and assign each user their own depending on their access levels. Does the metadata functionality include upload submission to US Ed so that submit or upload functionality does not need to be added if they have metadata? Fawn, I believe what you're asking is the metadata separate from upload and submit? And the answer to that is yes. So adding metadata means they can only enter the metadata, meaning what it currently would be the EMAPS surveys. So what the surveys we're transitioning into EDPass, they would have access to just that metadata entry. Okay. So this is the grid that I wanted to just reiterate. This is what I sent you guys. So as you are filling out this grid for every role in your state, just keep this grid in mind, which is the one that you'll actually have when you're creating your roles in the system. I'm not going to go into this in depth, but this is the information that I also sent last week. Basically, what I want to go over here is just, these are suggested roles for you guys. These, I worked very closely with Ed as well as a contact on our side of things who has access to EdFacts coordinators. And we thought these up just to provide you guys with a baseline. Your roles may look completely different. But for those of you that, if you're visual like me, or you at least need a starting point, this is going to be the best thing for you to look at and start when you start creating your roles. Pretty much what we did was we tried to think of all the different types of individuals in your state. So not even necessarily just system users as they are. These are just someone in your state that might need access to EDPass to support data submission, whether that's providing data notes or resolving data quality errors, or just, you can give these individuals view access, and then you can work together to resolve data quality. So these are just baselines. They could look totally different in your state and from one state to another. I'm not seeing any questions yet, so I'm going to continue on. And what we're going to kind of do is go over some examples that we thought up just to kind of show you the differences in roles. So if this is an IDEA Part B data manager, there's a couple different ways that you could provide them access. So the first one is showing you that you're giving the IDEA Part B data manager access to upload, submit data, resolve data quality errors as they come up, and respond to the metadata. Then you're giving them view access to the assessment data. So when they log into EDPass, they can't see anything else. They can't see data for any other data areas, but they can view the assessment data and then have full access to all the IDEA data. Well, every user will have access to directory and grades offered. So the other way you could approach this is you can give the IDEA data manager, maybe you as the EDFACS coordinator currently upload files into the EDFACS submission system. If you'd like to keep it that way, and maybe the Part B data manager wants to keep it that way, I really think you guys should discuss that and determine that in the state. But if they don't want to upload files and you want to keep your processes as they are, you wouldn't give them upload access. So you would just give them view, and then they can respond and add data quality notes to respond to data quality errors. So if they're currently part of your data quality process, that you're going to want to give them that access, responding to metadata, and then adding state submission plan notes. So that's how the main difference between these is the first one has access to do all functionalities, whereas the second one can't upload or submit data, but they can do everything else. So the next one is the migrant coordinator. Maybe you want to give the migrant coordinator full access to do everything. Metadata is grayed out because there is not a migrant metadata survey that collects data, but they could do everything, and then they'll let you know, well, the system will send an email when files are submitted, but they can let you know when they're done and their data is sent to the department. And then the difference basically is that you would have the same access. So you guys could do, you and the migrant coordinator could work hand in hand and pretty much do everything together, or maybe you just hand it over to them and you're giving them full access to migrant data. However, because they don't have any other access to other data areas, they won't be able to see any other data in EDPass. This is another view of just an example of the neglected and delinquent coordinator. Main difference here is the first one is allowing them to upload and submit data as well as resolve data quality rules, whereas the bottom one is only data quality rules. So they can see the data once the file successfully uploads, and then they can go in and start resolving all the errors. And then once it's resolved, you can go back in or the other individual review, make sure everything's acceptable, maybe upload your note to the state submission plan if there's any anomalies, and then you would be the one to submit the data. So these are just examples, different ways to get you guys thinking about your processes and how things are going to work in EDPass. I'm going to pause for just a moment and answer some of the questions in the Q&A log. So the email that was sent with this information was sent on Wednesday of last week, so the day before Thanksgiving. If you did not receive that, I am the one who sent it, so I will double check and follow up with you directly. I see 2 states reaching out about that, so I will follow up with you guys after today's session directly. The next question is, will access to EMAP surveys now be set up and maintained in EDPass by the state? No, these surveys are being developed and they will be in EDPass, and they will have an open and a closed date, but they will still be responded to by the state, but they will not be set up by you all. Okay. Generally, how do these roles map onto current EMAPS users? For example, does metadata in state submission plan map to current EMAPS users? And does current ESS users map to upload and resolve data quality failures? So in the email that I sent, there was an attachment with a long list of users. Anyone that was an ESS or an EMAPS user, I mapped directly to what they have access to currently and what you would want to most likely link them to in EDPass. So if you haven't reviewed that broadcast and the attachments, I encourage you to do that. However, if you still have questions, please reach out to PSC and I'll be happy to assist you as well as the team. Okay, I'm going to continue on. One thing I pointed out earlier, I just really wanted to highlight it for you, is that the role name and the role description are editable and, well, creatable and editable by you all. So when you're creating 3 roles for, let's say, IDEA data, if you're creating 3 different access levels and 3 different roles, you'll be able to name them individually so that you can differentiate which role gives what permissions. And then you can provide a description so that you can differentiate them from each other when you're on the admin panel. That panel is not yet built out entirely, so we couldn't include a screenshot of it today. But in the next webinar, that's what we plan to include, and kind of everything that's not developed yet but is in development, we'll make sure to do another webinar to get that information out to you all so that you don't have to think of it. Okay, so the next set of screenshots is really just to give you guys an idea of what EDPass is going to look like. It is being developed, it is real. And it is pretty cool to see it come to life. So we really wanted to show it to you guys today so that in the coming months, as you see things progress and get updated screenshots and updates on development, you can put a picture to what you're reading. So one of the first things I would like to show you guys is, as mentioned before, you must have a login.gov account to log into EDPass. And of course, we will train you guys as soon as we have access to the system, as well as you, we will train you on how to connect all of these accounts. But once it's connected, we wanted to just show you a video of what that looks like. So once it's connected, you will go to the EDPass website. That is not working. I apologize. Give me 1 second here. Let me pull it back up for you. technical difficulties. I apologize. Bear with me here for just a moment. Okay. There we go. So you're going to accept the terms of service and agree to them, and then you will click login.gov and you will enter your login.gov account credentials. So like I said, you can create that account now. And once PSC has access to EDPass, we will connect your login.gov account to your EDPass account. And as you can see, multi-factor authentication is going to be required. So you will set that up with your account creation. Once you log in, everything will authorize, and then this is the landing page that you will land on with login.gov. This is the same thing we just saw, but once you log in to EDPass, this is the landing page, and you'll see your options to navigate throughout the site are on the top. So you'll have your admin panel. When you click that link, you will have access to your role creation and user maintenance pages. You'll have access to the file specification list, which we're going to go over next. You'll have access to the upload screen. And then you see the IDEA child count option in the top right corner. That's going to be the first metadata that you guys are going to enter. So this is a little big. I can see if I can make it a little smaller for you guys, because that is really confusing. So here is the file list. And again, this is not real information. I'm sure the due dates are wrong, but the name shall be accurate. But what you're seeing here is this is really your workstation. This is really where you're going to come to do everything once you're trying to maintain, status of all of your files. The difference here is that in ESS, you guys are notified when a file is activated. We will do the same process in EDPass. So as files become active for upload, a broadcast will be sent. However, you can also differentiate that because all the files are going to be listed on your file page, but the ones that are grayed out are not active yet. So be able to do anything with those, but you can still see them. Another thing that you'll see here is on the right-hand side is the kebab menu for every single individual file. So when you click that, so this is 045, and if I click this kebab menu, I could go look at my data quality results. I could go make updates in my state submission plan. I could go to the submit screen if I'm ready to submit. And then there's also an option to download the data so that you have a copy of whatever you uploaded. This is the state submission plan. This looks exactly as it does today. You will have the character limit that you have today. You can expand these. They will be, the main difference is that it's going to be on a file by file basis. So you will access each file's SSP individually. So as you're working on a file, you don't have to go through that whole process to just update one file. So you can just kind of go down the list and update them as you want. And that is it for slides. So what I'm going to do is kind of go down the questions here. There's quite a lot. Okay, question. Generally, how do these roles map onto current EMAPS users? Oh, I answered that one. So as a reminder, go back and look at the spreadsheet that I sent with the users and kind of look to all the way to the right. There should be a column there suggesting how to map them in EDPass so you can start creating those roles. Next question. I think you said this, all users, not just the state managers, will need to create a login.gov account. That is accurate. Every single person that is going to need access to EDPass will be required to have a login.gov account. They can do that now. You can create a login.gov account today. How many character spaces are available if we need to make a note in SSP? There are 4,000 characters, which is the current SSP limit, so that will not change. And I'm not sure if I pointed this out, but there is an expand field here, so you can make the data entry field longer if you need to. I know sometimes you guys have really long notes, so you can pull it down to see. Will EMAPS only users also need a login.gov account? If the EMAPS users are accessing metadata in EDPass, then yes, they will need a login.gov account. But if they are going to access current EMAPS surveys, they won't require a login.gov account. So there are 5 metadata collections moving to EDPass. We will communicate that out so that you guys have that. But all the other surveys are staying in EMAPS, which are actual data collections. Okay. I'm just scrolling up here just a second. So far, I've answered all of your guys' questions. If you still have a question related to this, please enter it into the Q&A. But right now I'm not seeing anything, so I'm going to give it just a minute. That is a good point. Okay, so someone messaged me directly, so I'm going to go back a little bit here, and I don't know that we've necessarily, especially if you haven't had a chance to read the email that I sent yet, I want to go back to the to the functionality here. Don't know that we've really explained all the functionalities. In the email I sent, it does define each one, but I want to go over it with you just to kind of help with the role creation process. So functionalities on the left. This is going to be different from how it is in ESS today. In ESS today, we have users who can upload files, which basically is submitting. Upload and submit in ESS are the same thing. You just have one action. In EDPass, we've broken that apart into 2. And you have those same users can access the post-submission error report, and they can look at the data. In EDPass, we've tried to really break all of that up based on state feedback so that you guys can really set up access levels. So view data is just that. If you give someone view access to accountability data, they can only see accountability data. They cannot do anything with files or submit or add data notes or state submission plan notes. So if there's someone in your state that needs access to view all the data areas, you would create a role for them, have all the data areas assigned on that grid, and then you would just have the view functionality checked. Upload is uploading files. This is not submitting the files. So when you go in and you choose a file from your computer and you upload it to EDPass, at that point, once it processes successfully, all of the data quality errors are then ran against the file. So this is different from the current process because most data quality takes place after a due date, whereas in EDPass, as we've been saying, all of the data quality is going to take place before the file is submitted. So when someone uploads a file, they are truly just uploading it to the EDPass database, and then the next step is all the data quality edits are going to run. Which let me move down to resolve data quality rule failures. So in the current process, if you have an individual who participates in responding to CDQR or participates in responding to the IDEA data quality reviews on OMB Max, for example. Those individuals you're probably going to want to create an EDPass account for them so that they may resolve data quality rule failures. The work that they do currently after a due date is going to be done before you can even submit the file. So resolving data quality rule failures is a big deal, which is the other reason why I included so many point of contacts in the email that I sent last week. The reason for that is because I know not everyone knows who their migrant point of contact is or their neglected and delinquent point of contact. So we tried to incorporate all those different data areas, point of contacts in that spreadsheet so you guys can start communicating and figuring out processes. So that would be the next step in your process of roles. Then the state submission plan. Currently, the state submission plan is in EMAPS. It is moving to EDPass for 22-23. And anyone that currently has access to the state submission plan in EMAPS is gonna you're gonna wanna give them a state submission plan functionality as part of their role. That is how they'll be able to add those data notes in the state submission plan. The data notes that you guys add to data quality review spreadsheets, whether it be CDQR or the IDEA Part B one or GFSA, that's where that resolve data quality rule failure role is really going to come into place. I'm sorry, functionality is really going to come into play. The third one, metadata. So this is specifically aligned with metadata and EMAP surveys as they move to EMAPs. As I mentioned, there's 5 EMAPs currently, 5 current EMAP surveys that are going to move. The first one, as you saw in the screenshot, is going to be the IDEA Part B child count metadata. So whoever fills out the child count and environmental education environments data in that survey, you would want to give them metadata access. That will allow them to fill that information out. And then the last one is submit. So however you have it set up in your state, who has the authority to submit the data to the department is who you're going to want to give submit level to, submit functionality to. So you can create as I showed you earlier in the examples, you can create a role that only has submit functionality to assessment data. If you want the assessment data manager to submit your assessment data, then that is how you can apply that. If that individual uploads the file, resolves data quality, and submits, then you would give them all those functionalities. So that's how we're envisioning EDPass and how you guys truly have the ability to set up roles in your state that follow your processes and your data governance. Yes, Trish. So she said, upload launches the data quality review. When as it does in ESS now, if there are some pre-upload errors that will occur, pre-upload edits, I should say, that's going to check like your formatting, things like that. So if it prevents it from even being uploaded, you'll be notified like on the screen. But once your file uploads successfully, meaning it's in the right format and it's good to go, once it's in the database, then the database knows to start running all the data quality edits. Submitting is once all those data quality edits are resolved, meaning they are either fixed with a re-upload of a file, meaning you're addressing your source file, or you are going through and adding data notes to resolve the errors, or similar to how you do in the DMS now. I hope that explanation helps. I don't have the list of data areas, but every single file spec is covered by a data area. So one of the things that you guys really want to focus on when you're kind of creating these roles on paper is just make sure that every single data area is covered. Make sure someone has access to do every single functionality, whether it's one or multiple individuals in EDPass. That way, you know that you don't have to worry, who's going to submit. You know who's going to do that come a due date. Okay, so there's a couple questions. How can I get a list of current users and their access rates? As I mentioned before, that was sent on Wednesday. So if you have not seen that email or you did not receive it, it came from edfax@ed.gov. Please reach out to me so that I can re-forward that to you. Does upload include being able to run data quality checks, or do data quality checks run automatically? That functionality is being developed right now. It hasn't been finalized, so we will that will be included in the next review once that whole process is finalized and it's created. We're going to do a total training on that fun, so we'll get that going. Okay. Assuming adding and revoking functionality is available as needed. If you're asking if you can alter roles, the answer to that is yes. You can edit roles at any point and at any time if you're seeing that that process is not working and you need to adjust some things. Are there data quality rules and failures like the ESS validation and format errors that prevent the file from being successfully submitted? Or are they DMS type errors like your phone number isn't located in your state? So the data quality rules and failures are similar to ESS validation errors. It also is what you receive in CDQR. So it's not going to be everything. The department has really taken the time to review all of the edits that are applied to EDFAX data today, so that in EDPass, you guys are really responding to errors that quantify the data and tell a story. So if there are errors that maybe the department doesn't see necessary, they may be taking those out. So once the BRSI is published and finalized for EDPass, we will make sure to point those types of things out for you guys so that you can, do an in-depth review, but you don't necessarily have to read it word for word. We'll summarize it for you. Okay. I am just reading to make sure I captured or responded to everyone's questions here. I'm going to put PSC's email address in the, let me put it in the Q&A. If you did not receive an email from edfax@ed.gov last week with those attachments, please reach out to us so that I can re-forward it to you. I'm just kind of reading through to make sure I haven't. These are all great questions. I'm really glad you guys all joined us today. Now, as you're going through things, please do not hesitate to contact PSC and ask for guidance or ask any questions that you may have about the roles, functionalities, or just to think through things. We really encourage you guys to start thinking through these now and ask questions so that we can kind of streamline our processes and communication in the coming weeks to tailor them to you guys. Okay, I'm going to give it another minute. I'm going to let folks think for a second, and if you have a question, I'm going to go a couple pages in here. I'm going to put the role creation grid on the page so you guys can think in case you have a question. I'm going to go silent for just a moment and allow you guys to think or put your questions in the Q&A. June, I did see your question. I just kind of went back through now, and your question was, is metadata the current EMAP survey? The answer is yes. As I mentioned, there's 5 of them. The first one is going to be the IDEA child count survey. So in the screenshot that's on the screen now, you can see in the top corner, the IDEA child count survey questions is going to be the first one. So whoever fills that survey out, in most states, it's the Part B data manager. That's who PSC typically is communicating with. You'll want to make sure they have the metadata check so that they can enter that information if that is your process in the state. And then your other comments, I did see them, and we will share them. Okay, at this time, I don't see any other questions. Well, there is one. Okay, give me one moment. A question came through that says, will there be DMS type errors like there are more than one school at this location address, where we acknowledge that and the data are correct, and usually Ed accepts it as is in the DMS? Will such errors be in this data quality, and will we be able to resolve the error by submitting an answer that data are correct as submitted? So I think that was a little confusing as I was reading it, but what she's asking is, are you all going to be able to resolve data quality errors, explaining that the data is accurately submitted? The answer to that is yes. If the data are submitted accurately as is, and there is a data quality error firing, you'll be able to enter a comment and resolve that error, similar to the way the DMS is. So once this functionality and the system is developed closer to go live, we will do trainings specifically on these types of things that you guys are asking questions on, errors and resolving them. But yes, the answer to that is yes, you will be able to. At this time, there are no other questions. So with 4 minutes left, I'm going to go ahead and we will close out today. As a reminder, this is being recorded and it will be available on the COP site by the end of the week. However, we will send a broadcast letting you guys know once it's available. We will make sure that the Q&A log is posted shortly thereafter. I know some of you guys can't see some of the questions that are being asked. I will also see if there's a way to change that. I feel like that's new in WebEx and we were not notified. So I apologize for that because I know seeing questions helps let you guys know if your question is being asked. But we will try and answer all these and get it out to you guys so that you have those responses. There is a webinar survey at the end once we shut down WebEx. If you have just a couple minutes, if you can fill it out so we can enhance our future webinars, Any feedback is appreciated. And as always, if you have any questions after the webinar ends today, please send them to PSC. It's edfax@ed.gov. Send us an email and we will get your question answered or help walk you through whatever your thought process is. So I know everyone is really busy, so we appreciate you all taking the time and joining us today and really starting to get ready for the go live of EDPass in February. We know it'll be a very busy couple of months for you guys. So PSC is doing everything we can to prepare you and really plan out something that works around due dates, because we know there's a lot of them coming, and releases. So just keep in mind, we have your best interests at heart. So thank you, and I hope you guys all have a great afternoon.